Coming up on The Disturbance, I've got my big NFC South, the National Football League preview. And let's just face it, spoiler alert, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to win this division. We'll get into that. Plus, will Matt Rule survive the season as the Carolina Panthers head coach? I'll give you my thoughts on that. Plus, I will tell you why the Atlanta Falcons actually overachieved last year, and it has everything to do with their coaching staff. And finally, we'll take a look at the New Orleans Saints, and the big question is, why would the Saints decide to hire Dennis Allen as their head coach, who had one of the worst records in the history of the National Football League as a head coach in his previous stints with the Oakland Raiders? I've got all of that, and trust me, a whole lot more coming up on the big show today.
Live and on tape from the heart of Silicon Valley, this is The Disturbance, hosted by Dave Daba. Now to the host, who can't stop ripping on players, coaches, and unbelievably bad front office management, Dave Daba.
It is beyond late on a Monday, August 15th of the year 2022. I'm Dave Daba, and thanks so much for tuning into The Disturbance today. All right, we've got a big show. Mind you, it's going to be a quick show because let's just face it, the NFC South should be easily won by Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, I know what you all are thinking. Tom Brady has taken some time off. He's away from the team. What is going on with Tom Brady right now? And I think it's safe to say that this was a planned vacation for Tom Brady. Now, if you hire a new employee, and I've been hiring new people for throughout my career, a lot of times you'll be hiring somebody and they'll say, hey, about 2 months into my gig, I've got a planned family vacation. Is it okay if, 8 weeks into my job, if I take a week off for a planned family vacation? I think that's exactly what's happened with this Tampa Bay Buccaneer team. We'll talk about the Bucs here in just a little bit. We'll get into the Carolina Panthers, the New Orleans Saints, and I don't know if you've seen that brace on Jameis Winston's knee. Let's just say I think scrambling is going to be out of the question for Jameis Winston, at least for the first half of the season. And we will talk about Arthur Smith and the fact that he was able to get the Atlanta Falcons to finish 7-10 last season. But first, we begin with, of course, Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who back in 2020, in March of 2020, signed with the Buccaneers, won a Super Bowl in February of 21, announced his retirement in February of 22, and then unretires a couple months later in March, and then Bruce Arians exits the building, which puts Todd Bowles in as the head coach of this Tampa Bay Buccaneer team. Look, I don't think they lose anything with Todd Bowles as the head coach. Let's just face it. We're talking about an anomaly. You ever watch like a space movie and they talk about like that Armageddon movie with Bruce Willis from like 25 years ago, and they talk about an anomaly in outer space? That's what Tom Brady is as an athlete, especially as an athlete in the National Football League. It's not like Tom Brady's a pitcher in Major League Baseball. Tom Brady is still getting knocked on his back a couple times a game. And at age 45, if you look at the statistical breakdown of Tom Brady's career, he's like a fine wine. He is getting better with time. So this is a really solid team. They brought back most of everybody that they had before. They did have a couple losses, but they did re-sign Chris Godwin. Leonard Fournette did show up a little plumpy in training camp, but he'll get that together. They did lose guard Alex Kapka, tight end O.J. Howard, and running back Ronald Jones. And I think the Ronald Jones piece is something that could potentially slow down this Buccaneers team just a little bit. But they did make some other good moves in the offseason, and clearly this is the team to beat in this division. There just really is no question about it. Now, when you leave Tampa Bay and you work your way to Baker Mayfield's new Progressive Home Insurance home, which is in Carolina with the Carolina Panthers. You have Matt Rule, the head coach of this Carolina Panther team. And if you look at this Carolina Panther team, they had a really bad offensive line last year. And at least on paper, and at least through the early part of training camp, there seems to be some significant improvement with this offensive line on this Carolina Panther team. Will it hold up? That's hard for anybody to say. Can you keep Christian McCaffrey healthy for an entire National Football League season? And look, I'm not meaning to bash Christian McCaffrey or this Carolina Panther organization. I like teams that are willing to shake things up and are willing to spend some money. And that's exactly what this new owner is willing to do. He wants to win. Christian McCaffrey is injury prone, and that's just really what it is when you think about him as a starting running back in the National Football League. If he could stay healthy, he could be a league MVP. That's how good he is. So then you've got the quarterbacks. Now, you've heard me talk extensively about Sam Darnold. I really don't want to waste too much more time talking about Sam Darnold at this point. Until I see that Sam Darnold's fixed mentally, I think it's just not fair to Baker Mayfield, believe it or not, or even Matt Corral, the rookie quarterback, to really talk about all of this stuff around Sam Darnold. I mean, clearly the starting quarterback on day one, barring any kind of injuries or barring any kind of meltdown in training camp, is going to be Baker Mayfield. I joked about Baker Mayfield in the intro. I think I said, he's like the 27th best quarterback in the National Football League, and the reality is he's higher than that. He's in that 15 to 20 range week in and week out. Baker Mayfield is a strong leader on the field. He might have some issues in the locker room. He might have a bigger opinion of himself than is justified. But when you're a quarterback in the National Football League playing at the level that Baker Mayfield's playing at, I want a little bit of cockiness in my quarterback, if you know what I mean. So I think Baker Mayfield's a perfect fit for this Carolina Panther team, at least for this season, especially since they were able to get the Cleveland Browns to pay for the majority of his contract in the first place. I hope rookie Matt Corral does get some run at some point. And then, of course, on the wide receiving side of the fence, they still have Robbie Anderson, and it will be interesting to see how Robbie Anderson and Baker Mayfield get along. Look, this is a super quick division preview and prediction show because, to be frank, there's not as much detail to sort of get into in this division versus some of the other divisions that we've already covered. Like if you take a look at our AFC West preview show, there's a lot to talk about when you have four basically Pro Bowl quarterbacks in one division. In this particular case, there's the GOAT, and then there's everybody else, and there's a bunch of question marks everywhere. Now, I think one of the biggest question marks I had during this offseason is, why would the New Orleans Saints, and I know Dennis Allen's a good guy, but why would they give Dennis Allen another chance as a head coach in the National Football League? Somebody that took the Oakland Raiders to an 8-28 record, a winning percentage of 222. I'm just saying, when you look at how bad of a job Dennis Allen did with that Oakland Raider team during that 3-year era, you really have to wonder what the New Orleans Saints were thinking about. Now, I know Sean Payton liked him a lot, and he was and he was a good choice and is liked by a lot of the players. But as a head coach in the National Football League, I have all sorts of questions. I hope I'm wrong. I think everybody deserves a second chance in the National Football League. That being said, this is it. If this Saints team, for some reason, gets off to a 1-6 start, Dennis Allen should be on the hot seat before he even makes it to double digits as a head coach in the National Football League. He might be one of those guys that is just better off being a coordinator as opposed to a head coach. And that's something that if I'm a Saints fan, I'm definitely thinking of. Now, the Saints did draft one of my favorite young wide receivers, and it's like every year in the National Football League, there are like 5 to 10 new wide receivers that literally, I believe, can have a major impact on the teams that they're playing for. There are so many good young wide receivers in the National Football League right now, and so many more coming in the coming years as well. Chris Olave out of Ohio State. He had 65 catches last season for 936 yards, and he was ranked third. He was ranked third amongst other Ohio State wide receivers. That's how good that Ohio State wide receiver core was. Look, Michael Thomas, you should be getting back at some point. And then they went ahead and they did the deal of the year with Jarvis Landry. They got Jarvis Landry on a 1-year deal for just $3 million. Look, basically that was escaped from Cleveland by Jarvis Landry. He's like, get me the hell out of there. Landry, who had 52 receptions last season, 72 the season before, 83 and 81 in those previous seasons with the Cleveland Browns, is a fantastic second wide receiver in the National Football League, almost a 1B wide receiver on a bad team. A fantastic pickup for the New Orleans Saints in that front. Look, the Taysom Hill experiment at quarterback is officially over. Alvin Kamara looks like he's going to be avoiding at least jail time during the season, as his case has been delayed until December at last check. So this is a team with a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. The question at quarterback is Jameis Winston really going to be able to go at the level you'd like to see Jameis go at? We know Jameis can put up 4,000 yards. We know he can. He likes to take chances. So I think it's just a question of his health and how healthy is Jameis Winston at this point in order for this Saints team to do well. On paper, the Saints are the team that if they got on a roll and Jameis Winston left off where he was last season, things do happen in the National Football League. This New Orleans Saints team does have enough firepower on both sides. Now, for those of you that have been following the disturbance, and for those of you that know how I feel about coaching in both the NBA and the NFL, I think coaching really does matter, and I'm certainly concerned. And I think you should be concerned too if you're a Saints fan, because on paper, you have the second best team in the division. You have a team that theoretically could be making some sort of playoff run. The big question is on the coaching sideline and in the coach's booth above. So, and nothing personal against Dennis Allen. I hope I'm wrong. Moving on to the final team in the NFC South. And when you actually think about this Atlanta Falcon team, like the Atlanta Falcons, they're a team that's like they go down for a couple years, and then they bounce back up. And then it seems like every 10 years or so, the Atlanta Falcons are threatening to go to a Super Bowl and end up in a Super Bowl. It feels like basically every 10 to 11, 12 years, the Falcons miraculously show up in the Super Bowl and lose. And yeah, that coach then has a couple more seasons, and then that coach is gone, as in Dan Quinn in this particular case, who is suddenly loved by everybody in Dallas as the second coming of this great coach. And a lot of people just sort of don't look at what happened in Atlanta the last couple seasons he was there, since he took the team to the playoffs. You know, I have to say, I was really impressed with Arthur Smith. And they finished the season last year at 7-10. And they never gave up. And that says a lot to me about Arthur Smith and his coaching staff and the program that they have started to establish in Atlanta. Look, the National Football League, nothing really comes easy in the National Football League, does it? Like, if you really think about it, the only time anything super easy could come in the National Football League might be in the last couple weeks of the season, when Jared Goff's replacement is starting at quarterback for the Detroit Lions. I'm just saying that nothing comes easy in the National Football League, and all of these teams can win on any given Sunday. Al Pacino is fantastic in that movie. That being said, anybody can win, and I think good coaching really does matter. Now, they moved on from Matt Ryan, who is officially looking old, with the Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts strategy is to only hire quarterbacks who play old. That's what they do. They just want quarterbacks who are at the end of their career. I think the ultimate for the Indianapolis Colts would be, everybody thinks Tom Brady's going to play one more year and end up in Miami. But I think if the Colts could somehow get Tom Brady next season, that would be the ultimate, because that's where all quarterbacks apparently go to die, is to Indianapolis. So Matt Ryan is in Indianapolis, and Marcus Mariota is supposed to be the starting quarterback of this Atlanta Falcon team. Look, I think at the end of the day, Desmond Ridder is going to get a real chance to be the starting quarterback. I don't know if it's going to happen week 1 or if it's going to happen in week 4 or 5 of the National Football League season. But something will happen where Desmond Ridder has a real chance to be the starting quarterback of this Atlanta Falcon team. Look, I'm not saying he's got the arm of one Joey Lawrence. I'm not saying he's the next Joe Burrow. But he might be a good enough quarterback to actually help this Atlanta Falcon team, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but improve on last year's 7-10 record. Look, I don't know that this Falcon team has enough firepower on both sides of the ball to make a playoff run. I really don't think they do. But if you look at their tight end Kyle Pitts, and you sort of look at some of the other pieces they have on the offensive side of the ball and a fairly decent scheme that they run, this Atlanta Falcons team could be dangerous. I don't know if 8-9 is the appropriate number to predict for this team. It's hard for me to see, them or say publicly that I think they're going to go like 9-8 and end up with a winning record this season. I like the old days of the NFL, where you could actually just predict a team would be flat. And you would say they'd be 8-8. But now on these prediction shows, you have to go one way or the other. You have to go 9-8 or 8-9. And it's hard for me to go anything past 8-9. But I will tell you this, if they do finish the season at 8-9, it will be another hell of a coaching job by Arthur Smith and his team. Because as far as talent goes, this Atlanta Falcons team has the least amount of talent of any of the teams in this particular division. All right, one final note, and we talked a little bit about the Carolina Panthers earlier. I brought this up in the intro that Matt Rule is absolutely, without a doubt, on the hot seat. He's so much so on the hot seat that I question the Carolina Panthers even bringing the poor guy back. That's how hot his hot seat is. And I like Matt Rule. If you have a chance, go back and check out Matt Rule's introduction to the Carolina Panthers press conference. I remember watching that thinking this guy has done just such a fantastic job motivating anybody that watched it, would be motivated by what Matt Rule was saying. I want to see Matt Rule successful in the National Football League. I want to see the Carolina Panthers have a good season. I'm just a little bit worried about Sam Darnold still being on this roster, and I'll leave it at that. All right, that's it for my big NFC South National Football League 2022 preview and prediction show. Shouldn't be a prediction, shouldn't be a shock to anybody that I'm going to take Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And you really shouldn't worry about Tom Brady, who's earned a vacation during the training camp. And I know that seems unorthodox to a lot of people. But if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady rings you up on the phone and goes, I think I'm going to come back. But here's what I need. And he says, I need 10 days off. We got a family vacation, family trip. I need 10 days off towards the end of training camp. And then after the bye week, maybe I don't travel to Europe for that European game. Maybe I stay back home, and you give me 2 weeks off there in the middle of the season as well. Wouldn't surprise me at all if that was also part of the hook, one of the requirements to or deal points that Tom Brady negotiated in his return to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All right, that's it for the Disturbance today. Do check out our big sports website at disturbance.live when you have a chance. For the Disturbance, I'm Dave DeBaugh, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing week.
The Disturbance is brought to you live and on tape from the heart of the Silicon Valley and is a production of the Mighty Rip Podcast Network. For more witty, 100% independent NFL and NBA sports coverage, check out our big sports website at disturbance.live.